Rajni, what's wrong?
Tom, I have a script and I don't know what to do with it. Should I burn it? Feed it to my cat?
You need some writers group therapy.
Hello and welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Roshni. We're writers helping writers. Ready for your session? The doctors are in. Okay, so community is a big thing. I think that's a really good way to start off the years talking about community and how important it is. So in our community series, mentoring. Who's been the most memorable mentor you've had, or the best piece of advice that someone's ever given you?
One of my best mentors was Mark Zickery. He taught me about creating evidence. That was one of the big things that he stressed in his mentoring sessions, was creating evidence that you can show people that you can do what you say you're going to do. And we did that by making 4 films together. So yeah, we kind of have followed that pretty well, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I mean, and I know he's a recent mentor. Do you have a mentor from the past, maybe, that you remember?
My English teacher, Mrs. Reed in high school, she was a fantastic English teacher. She pushed me to be more creative than I wanted to be. In fact, she entered a poem I wrote into a writing contest, and I actually won first place in a county-wide poetry contest when I was in high school.
Really?
Yeah,
That's,
I didn't even know she entered me into it. She kind of did it behind my back, actually.
uh-huh. But I'm sure you were glad she did.
Yeah, I actually got some money for it too. So I'm a professional poet actually. So
You are published too, right? That's
published
awesome.
professional poet. Yeah.
I know for me, I've had a lot of mentors over the years. One of my favorites was my sixth grade English teacher, who passed away a few years after I had her as a teacher. But we had to do these creative writing pages. I think we had to write like 4 pages a week or something. And I had read some like Babysitters Club book or something, and they had written about a kid with autism, which at the time was pretty groundbreaking because nobody really talked about it at that point. And I wrote a story about a sibling with autism. And Mrs. Menard called me up to her desk to talk to her privately during class, and everyone was like, "Ooh, Roshni's in trouble." And instead, she wanted to know about my autistic sibling. Apparently, I had written it so well, she thought I had a brother who was really autistic. And at the end of it, she said, "You have a real talent. You should keep doing this." And that stuck with me for a long time.
Wow, that's a great story. So so we both talked about teachers we had as mentors, but how do you find other mentors, like professional mentors?
I think it really depends on what you want to go for. I think mentoring is important, first of all. And I think if you want to find a mentor, the best thing you can do is find out what area you want to be in and then go after them. So, for example, when I was in college, I wanted to be a staff photographer at a newspaper. And the recruiter for the Detroit Free Press was very much a champion of diversity and of bringing people up. And I think I contacted him something about just a diversity question, and we ended up becoming friends. And even though I never worked at the Detroit Free Press, he would call me up and say, "Hey, I got a job lead for you. Go after this gig in Cleveland." He'd give me the info. Hey, if you need a reference, if you need this or whatever. He was great, and he became a genuine friend. And one of the pieces of advice that he gave me was, if somebody ever gives you advice, put it to work and then go back and show them that you did what they said. And that's the best way to impress somebody. And I know he gave me tons of advice and I implemented all of it, and I hope it was impressive to him.
Yeah, that's a great lesson to learn to, actually go back and say, "Hey, look, what you told me, I did it and it worked for me." So
Yeah.
that makes them feel good that you're, actually listening to what they said, and that makes them want to be your mentor even more in some ways because they know you're willing to actually listen and learn from them. So, and I think that's a big part about picking a mentor is you want to pick someone who you respect and you value their experience. And like you said, they're doing what you want to do in some ways.
Hmm.
So then down the line, you can hopefully pay it forward to somebody else too. You can become a mentor
Yeah.
in some ways.
And sometimes it's formal and sometimes it's not. Like I know, for example, I used to be a member of Women in Film, and they have like formal mentoring circles. And so you you sign up for it and you know you're meeting with someone, and for that amount of time, be it 6 months, a year, whatever the time span is, you can go to that person with questions and for advice about industry stuff. And sometimes you just meet people randomly and they become mentors to you, and you never call them your mentor, they become your friend. And you don't mind going to them for advice, they don't mind taking your call to help you out with something. So it comes and goes, there's ebbs and flows, and it can either be formal or informal, and maybe it's for 6 months, maybe it's for 5 years.
True. I've had mentors that I've known for years. Before I even moved out to LA, I was fortunate enough to go to a seminar, or a one-day, half-day seminar with Eric Bork, who was a writer on From the Earth to the Moon and Band of Brothers, and learned a lot from him. And I still email him occasionally and share what's going on in my world of writing. And he's actually available as a mentor you can hire. He's a scripts consultant and a writing coach too. So. And then back in when was that, 2010, 2011, I took a weekend seminar with Barry Evans, who I've talked about before on the show. And she's been a great supporter. And I actually we spent New Year's together. Went to movie and Chinese on New Year's, and we're able to connect and talk about what's going on in my writing. And she scolded me again for not outlining things properly, but that's great because she's really supportive and she wants me to do well. So it's great that she keeps reminding me of all the things that she's taught me over the years.
Yeah. And I think actually you bring up a good point right there. So you went out on New Year's and you guys had Chinese food. And I'm sure you didn't talk about writing the whole time, even though that's what brought you together. And I think the best mentoring relationships, you go out and you talk about golf, you talk about your kids, you talk about your pets or whatever. And it's not just about work, work, work. You get to know them as human beings as well.
Right. And that's I've helped her with some of her volunteer projects with Better with Books and that kind of stuff. So we have really become friends through this process of mentorship and just being there for each other in various ways. So she's become more of a friend than just a mentor too. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that being said, though, I think when you do look for a mentor, especially when you're first getting to know them and you don't quite have that connection yet, you do have to be respectful. Like they may say, call me anytime, but they will not appreciate you calling them at 1 a.m. to say, hey, I have this random stupid writing question. They'll be like, excuse me, really? So if they say, email only, or please don't call after 5 unless it's an emergency, then definitely respect those boundaries.
right, a mentor doesn't owe you anything unless you're paying them for their advice. Some mentors are consultants that work for a fee, but at least you know what you're getting then. But like Mark Zickery was telling me, actually, if with his networking group, The Table, if you offer to help somebody do something, or if somebody helps you do something, then you should help somebody else. So you're kind of paying it forward in a lot of ways too.
Definitely.
Yeah, because we're all really, in some ways, mentoring each other because we all have different experiences and we can all learn from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I come from, a bit of a churchy background, and I remember with discipleship, that was actually one of the things they always said. They called it discipleship, but it was basically mentoring. But even though you're looking for someone to mentor you, you should be mentoring the next generation as well. So even though that's in a religious context, it works in a secular one as well. If you're trying to what's the word? If you're trying to rise up in the ranks in the industry, definitely find someone who's just starting out and help them out a little bit too. And you never know, they could end up becoming a really big ally. What was it? I heard a story. What's the name of that actress who was the wife on Everybody Loves Raymond? Patricia something.
Heaton.
Heaton, Patricia Heaton. I think it's her, but she was a part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, which, by the way, is a great group. I can totally vouch for them. And I guess when she first moved out to Los Angeles, she had a little sister, and they met for years and years and years while she was a struggling actor, blah, blah, blah. She rose up in the ranks to the point where she ended up hiring the girl. I forget what, like as an assistant or something, but she ended up hiring her little sister. So just like people are feeding into us, we need to feed into other people.
Yeah, that's fantastic because we're all in this together, really. And I think one of the things I've learned here is people think Hollywood's like dog eat dog, but really we're kind of a pack. We're all running together, all trying to accomplish similar goals, so we can actually help each other out along the way. We don't have to all just it's not last man standing really. It takes a community kind of thing, like you said originally.
Very, very true. So, any other advice as far as what you would tell somebody if you were a mentor?
Uh, I don't know. Well, I would definitely say, look in the show notes. I'm going to put some links in there for some of the mentors that I've worked with, so you can, maybe learn from them too. But, you know, uh, look around your neighborhood. If you're not in LA, there still may be writers groups in the area. They might not be screenwriting specifically, but they may be, uh, you know, uh, writing in general. And, you can maybe find other people or start a meetup group and see if anyone else in your area is doing the same thing you are.
Mm-hmm. And how would you recognize what makes a good mentor?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do with looking at mentors is to make sure that they're not just talk, that they've actually done what they're teaching you about doing. So, someone who's actually been through it and succeeded, versus someone who is just out there giving advice. It's kind of like the question, why are stockbrokers stockbrokers? If they're so good at what they do, why aren't they already rich? That kind of thing.
And I think also when you're looking for a mentor, you should look for people who champion you and also challenge you. So if they're rude, if they're harsh with their criticism, if they put you down, move on because that's not a mentor.
Ah, very good. That's good advice.
So, how about for you? Who's been your favorite mentor and what's the best piece of advice they've given you? Let us know at WG Therapy on Twitter, and you can also check us out online at writersgrouptherapy.com. And if you like what you hear, subscribe and share it with your friends. We'll see you next week.